counting the wooden beams. For what felt like the 100th time, a sudden thought flashed through his mind. It was like a bolt of lightning in a dark sky, bright and unexpected. If the mask in the old shrine had taken away his manhood, maybe it could give it back too. Obinna sat up quickly, his heart racing with excitement, but then doubt crept in. Like a cold wind through a crack in the wall, how could he make the mask return what it had taken? And if it was possible, what would he have to do? What price would he have to pay? These questions swirled in Obinna's mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. He knew that going back to the shrine would be dangerous. The memory of what happened last time made his hands shake and his stomach feel tight with fear. But as he looked around his small, dark room, Obinna realized he had no other choice. He couldn't keep living like this, hiding from everyone, ashamed and afraid. As the night slowly turned to day, Obinna made up his mind. He would go back to the shrine as soon as the sun rose. Whatever happened, there couldn't be worse than the life he was living now. Little did Obinna know that his decision would set in motion a chain of events that would not only change his life, but the fate of his entire village. As the first light of dawn began to paint the sky a pale blue, Obinna quietly got up from his mat. He put on his best wrapper, a piece of cloth his mother had given him for special occasions. He wanted to look his best, to show respect to whatever powers lived in the old shrine. Obinna crept out of his family's compound, careful not to wake anyone. The packed earth was cool under his bare feet, still damp with morning dew. The village was quiet and peaceful. Obinna could hear the soft cooing of doves in the nearby trees and the distant crow of a rooster welcoming the new day. As he walked towards the edge of the village where the old shrine stood, Obinna's heart began to beat faster. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if his feet were sinking into the ground. The shrine looked different in the early morning light. Its mud walls cast long, dark shadows that seemed to reach out like fingers trying to grab him. Obinna stopped a few steps away from the shrine's door. He could feel sweat on his forehead and under his arms, even though the morning air was still cool. For a moment, he thought about turning back. He could run home, crawl back onto his mat, and pretend he had never left. But then Obinna thought about his family, about Adana, about all the people in the village who would now look at him with pity or disgust. He couldn't keep living like that. He had to try to fix what had happened, no matter how scared he felt. "I have to do this," Obinna whispered to himself, trying to sound braver than he felt. His voice sounded small and shaky in the quiet morning air. "I have to make things right. I have to be a man again." Obinna took a deep breath and reached out his hand. It was trembling so much that he had trouble grasping the rough wooden handle of the door. The door creaked loudly as he pushed it open, the sound seeming to echo across the whole village. As Obinna stepped into the dark shrine, he had no idea that this moment would change everything. He didn't know that what he was about to do would start a chain of events that would affect not just his own life, but the lives of everyone in his village. Inside the shrine, it was even darker than Obinna remembered. The air felt thick and heavy, like breathing in dust. As his eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, he could make out the shape of the mask in the center of the room. It stood there, silent and still, just as it had been before, but to Obinna it seemed to loom larger, its presence filling the entire shrine. Obinna's legs felt weak, and for a moment he thought he might fall. But he forced himself to stand straight and tall. He was here for a reason, and he wouldn't leave until he had tried everything he could think of to break the curse. As he took a step towards the mask, Obinna felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body. It was as if the air in the shrine was charged with some kind of energy he couldn't see or understand. Obinna didn't know it yet, but his adventure was just beginning. The curse of the mask was far from over, and the path ahead of him would be filled with challenges he could never have imagined. Ancient spirits, forgotten magic, and the very fabric of his world were about to collide in ways that would test not just his courage, but his very identity as a man. As Obina reached out to touch the mask once more, the air in the shrine seemed to thicken. The symbols on the mask began to glow with an eerie light, and somewhere in the depths of the spiritual realm, ancient forces stirred, awakening to the presence of a mortal who dared to challenge their Obina stood in front of the mask, his hand hovering over it. The air was thick and suffocating, filled with an energy that seemed to buzz against his skin. The strange symbols carved into the mask glowed faintly, as if alive. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat, but he knew he couldn't turn back now. "I have to do this," he whispered again, though his voice was barely more than a breath. His hand trembled as he reached out and finally touched the mask. Nothing happened at first. Obina waited, every muscle in his body tense, but the shrine remained silent. The mask stayed cold and still under his fingers. For a brief moment, Obina thought that maybe it had all been a horrible dream, a nightmare that would fade with the morning light. But as he started to pull his hand away, something changed. The air in the shrine shifted, growing even heavier. The light filtering through the cracks in the walls dimmed until the room was almost completely dark. Then, without warning, the mask began to glow brighter, the strange symbols pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to match the beating of Obina's heart. A voice, deep and ancient, echoed in the room. It wasn't coming from the mask itself, but from everywhere at once, surrounding Obina and filling his ears. "You dare to return, mortal," the voice rumbled, making the ground beneath Obina's feet tremble. "You who defied the warnings of your ancestors and touched what was forbidden." Obina's knees buckled and he dropped to the ground, bowing his head. His heart raced and his mouth was dry, but he forced himself to speak. I didn't know. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I need you to reverse the curse. I beg you." The voice was silent for a moment, and Obina dared to look up. The mask seemed to be staring straight into his soul, the glowing symbols twisting and shifting in ways that made his head spin. "You seek to undo what has been done," the voice said, colder now, "but the price has already been paid. The curse cannot be lifted so easily." Obina's heart sank. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking with desperation. "I'll do anything. Just tell me what I have to do." The air grew colder, and Obina shivered. The voice returned, quieter now, almost whispering. "There is a way," it said slowly, "but it is not without danger. If you wish to regain what you have lost, you must face the spirits of the ancestors. They guard the balance between this world and the next, and they do not forgive easily." Obina's mind raced. Face the spirits of the ancestors. He had no idea what that meant or how he would do it. But he knew he had no choice. This was his only chance to undo the curse and reclaim his life. "I'll do it," Obina said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "I'll face them. Whatever it takes." The voice rumbled again, this time with a hint of dark amusement. "Very well, mortal, but know this. The path you have chosen is perilous. Few who walk it ever return. You will be tested, and the spirits will show no mercy." Before Obina could respond, the ground beneath him suddenly gave way. He cried out as he fell, tumbling into darkness. The air rushed past him, cold and biting, and he had the sickening feeling that he was falling deep into the earth. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the fall stopped. Obina hit the ground hard, the breath knocked out of him. He gasped for air, his chest heaving as he tried to regain his bearings. The world around him was pitch black. but he could hear voices, whispers, angry and accusing, coming from all directions. "Who disturbs the spirits?" one voice hissed. "Who dares enter the realm of the ancestors?" Another growled. Obinna forced himself to stand, his legs shaky beneath him. I am Obinna," he said, his voice trembling. "I seek to undo the curse that has been placed upon me. I was wrong to enter the shrine, but I beg for your mercy." The whispers grew louder, circling him like a storm. Shadows began to take shape around him, shifting and swirling, forming the vague outlines of figures.